So next up, podcast listeners, RINO Maryland governor kisses up to CBS on Face the Nation. So CBS has that long-running news program. They call it a hard news program on Sunday mornings called Face the Nation. It's kind of a joke. And RINO Governor Larry Hogan gets on it. And Governor Larry Hogan, of course, is a Republican in the very left-wing state of Maryland. But the governor decides to do exactly what the Democrats are doing, which is to say, and to agree with President Biden and Jean-Pierre that the MAGA Republicans are the problem. It's just the most incredible thing that I have ever seen. And what this takeaway is for you folks out there in podcast land nationwide is when you have someone who decides to sell out their party, and they sell out their party on the lowest common denominator, namely saying that there aren't improvements that we can make to the election system. Meanwhile, here's the guy who is the governor of Maryland, where massive election issues continue to occur in the city of Baltimore. And the Democrats are doing everything they can to undermine Maryland's election system by eliminating voter ID and eliminating in-person voting. So first up, here is Governor Larry Hogan on Face the Nation. Here's the clip.
Real quickly, do you see any strains of authoritarianism in the Republican Party?
Well, there's no question we see some signs of that, and I've been one of the ones speaking out.
Very good. Governor Hogan, thanks so much.
So do you see authoritarianism in the Republican Party? So why does that matter? Why are we telling you this? Because naturally, CBS News is a very left-wing news show, of course, always has been, like all of CBS and NBC and ABC and all of them. And they have to get on a Republican who is going to tell them exactly what they want to hear. And Larry Hogan is all too happy to tell them exactly what they want to hear, which is, oh, yeah, the Republican Party has lots of authoritarian people in. Not Kathy Hochul of New York. Oh, no. Not the Secretary of State of Michigan. Oh, no. No, not the FBI. Oh, no. Not even the Democrat Party, which is the party that's trying to get rid of voter ID. Oh, no. It is the Republicans. So you have a Republican throwing the Republicans under the bus, not even trying to talk about the much broader and more important issues that we've been talking about this podcast. So RINO Governor Larry Hogan decides to do what? He decides to incite Republicans himself by calling them authoritarian. And so then, naturally, as CBS always does, and all of the mainstream media always does, it says, well, Governor Hogan, what happened to the guy that was, you had somebody who was going to run and take your place in Maryland now that you're actually in the last few months of your term as governor of Maryland and you're termed out? Why didn't your chosen successor win? Listen to what Hogan does. And this is what happens when a RINO is in office, because they don't believe in anything. They just believe in power and staying in power. They don't actually have a core of values that they believe in. They're valueless. Just about money, just about power, just about staying elected. We have that clip, and here it is.
How either alarming or maybe giving you a moment for pause was it to see your preferred Republican gubernatorial candidate, Kelly Schultz, lose in a Republican primary for governor in your own state of Maryland?
Well, it was really
what does that tell you?
It was really sad, and it's what I've been talking about for 2 years, that this should be a really huge year for Republicans just because of the failures of the Democrats and who are in control of everything and Biden's low approval ratings. But we could blow it by nominating unelectable people, and that's exactly what's happening across the country and why the wave is going to be more of a ripple rather than a tidal wave.
You called the winner in that Republican gubernatorial primary, Dan Cox, a QAnon whack job and a nut. I take it you're endorsing the Democratic nominee, Wes Moore.
No, I'm not endorsing anybody in the race, but what I'm doing is helping.
But you're bashing on the Republican nominee, isn't it the same thing?
I've just told the truth. When people ask me a question, I usually give them a direct answer, and I made it very clear that this guy should not be the nominee and he shouldn't be governor, but I'm not getting involved in endorsing in the race.
Yeah, so, Governor, you will not be the presidential nominee for the Republican Party either, just so you know. But, of course, Governor Hogan's asked the question, well, wait a minute, the guy that won the primary in Maryland for governor that's going to kind of potentially take your place, you didn't endorse him. In fact, you did worse. You called him a QAnon guy, a QAnon supporter. And doesn't that actually make it almost certain the Democrat's going to win for governor? And by Democrat in Maryland, we're talking about a socialist and a Marxist. And Hogan, the RINO, is like, oh, well, I just call them the way I see them. Meaning that he's okay with a Marxist getting control of the governorship in the state of Maryland. That's more important to him because he wants to be liked by CBS News and he wants to be liked by the Biden administration, who is saying that MAGA Republicans are semi-fascists, and the governor is saying the same thing without actually talking about the specific issues. Talk about the issues, about voter ID, about voting in person, about election integrity, about maintaining and bringing us together so that we have confidence in our elections, about the actual policy issues. Oh, no, he'd much rather have a Marxist in office because, Marxists aren't authoritarian, are they? So then we have another clip, because we have two more clips on this Larry Hogan thing, because it's just important. It just goes to show you how in this country we have certain individuals who are just about getting elected. They don't really believe in anything. And so I hear this often from Republicans too. I'm just tired of those Republicans, they say, who just want to get elected and don't really have a core belief of anything. It's just about that. It's just about getting paid, getting elected, being in charge and acting important. We have another clip. Here it is.
It's why Mitch McConnell is saying we may not win the Senate. It's why we were hoping to pick up seats in governor's races, and now we're not. It's why the margin in the House is so much smaller.
Mm-hmm. It's curious to me, though, Governor. I mean, you won election and then you won re-election with a good number of Democrats in a blue state supporting you. They look to you in this question. You're going to sit out and not tell them?
Well, I think they already have their mind.
Maryland should be?
I think they already have their mind made up. But yes, Maryland's only got 23% Republican. And I had to win, almost all the Republicans and independents and 25% of the Democrats to win. But this candidate is not going to do that.
So we have the governor of Maryland, the sitting governor of Maryland, RINO Larry Hogan, saying, well, Marylanders have already made up their mind. They've already made up their mind, meaning that Governor Hogan isn't going to try to help the Republican nominee at all. In fact, he's going to do everything he can to hose his campaign because as far as the RINO Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, is concerned, the state's already made up its mind. It's going to elect Wes Moore, the Marxist, because a Marxist is so much better. And then we have the final clip in this series with Face the Nation on CBS with RINO Governor Larry Hogan. And this is the funniest part, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, this is the governor of Maryland. He's a Republican. At least he'd like you to think that he is. But you heard all of his comments there. Listen to this. He says he's going to run for president. He thinks he's going to run for president. Believe me, he does. We have the clip, and here it is.
View it differently.
As I understand your travel schedule, Governor, you're heading to New Hampshire again. You've been there before. You've been to Iowa. When are you announcing your 2024 bid?
Well, maybe this morning. No, I'm just teasing.
Go right ahead, Governor.
So there you have the governor of Maryland going, real smug. Yeah, I went to New Hampshire and I went to Iowa. Yeah, I might run for president. I mean, here's a guy. It's always about him, right? It's always about him and whether or not he gets to stay in office and whether or not he's liked by everybody. That's the most important thing. Not about what is correct. Not about what is good policy, not about any of those things. It's always about him and getting to the next office and staying in office and so forth. And he is literally, Larry Hogan is literally the definition of the uniparty in the United States of America, which is exactly what gave birth to the Tea Party, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly what gave birth to the MAGA Republicans. The fact that there is this sense in the heart of the United States that we have a uniparty. That is to say, we don't really have two parties that are running the country and through their adverse kind of debate and so forth and debating through issues, come up with policy and compromise. No, we don't have that as far as the Tea Party and MAGA Republicans believe. Instead, what we have are the Larry Hogans of the world, which are the uniparty. It's just about keeping the right people in power, in the right jobs, and making sure the deep state still stays in control. and making sure that the people really don't have free and fair elections, and that we don't try to make the elections more and more secure so that we have confidence in those elections. Oh no, Larry Hogan's all too fine with throwing the other Republican under the bus who's running for governor of Maryland, or any other Republican for that matter, because it's all about him. And even if that means a Marxist gets elected, that's okay. That's okay, because the Marxist in Larry's mind isn't the authoritarian guy. It's the Republican who's the authoritarian guy. And that's RINO Maryland governor kisses up to CBS.